Beef up security as IG dispatches 8 commissioners of police, 40,000 personnel ahead of Osun governorship election. 2 die in Niger tanker explosion and cholera outbreak persists in Zamfara and Borno State. In international news, major hurricane dangerous typhoon battle US and Asia. And in sports, NFF elections countdown. Pinnick vows never to contest any other elections in Nigeria.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Osun State governorship elections will hold on Saturday in preparation for a hitch-free poll. Inspector General of Police Ibrahim Idris has dispatched 8 commissioners of police, 40,000 police personnel, 2 helicopters, 30 armored personnel carriers and 300 patrol vehicles to man polling sites and the streets. Police spokesman Jim Omashud explained that the security operation would be coordinated by the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of operations, Joshua Kabila, to be aided by an Assistant Inspector General and 8 commissioners. The IG plans to hold a peace accord meeting with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, 48 political parties and their candidates and election observers. The IG has warned that the force will deal with anyone involved in any criminal act to sabotage the election or foment violence. 2 persons died and 3 others were seriously wounded in a fuel tanker accident in Suleja local government area. The tanker, whose driver allegedly lost control, was carrying 40,000 liters of fuel for an NNPC Mina depot. The tanker overturned, spilled its content, and caught fire. One of the injured lost his 2 legs. Director General of Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Ahmed Inga, confirmed 5 cars and 6 shops were also destroyed. Nigeria's Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says despite federal government's efforts to contain the spread of cholera outbreak, the airborne disease has continued to spread in the northern states. Latest figures from the Emergency Operations Center indicate that Zamfara State has shown increasing numbers, while Borno, Adamawa and Gombe states are reporting new cases daily. Sunday's report has 29 fresh cases with 3 deaths from Gombe. In September, more than 1,000 cases were reported from 5 states, with 24 deaths in Katsina and Zamfara. NCDC says no reports yet from Sokoto State. Residents of Ozoro community in the Federal Capital Territory are still in tears over the deaths of 2 persons killed in Ozoro River during the floods there. FCT Emergency Management Agency is still searching for the bodies of the deceased. 12 children were said to have been swimming at the Ozoro River when rains flooded the area, drowning 2 of them. Survivors say they escaped to the help of some adults. FEMA has urged parents to live up to their responsibility of looking out for their children to avoid such catastrophes. More reports on floods, this time in Bayelsa State, where some coastal communities have been submerged. Bayelsa Commissioner for Information, Daniel Moxon, says the communities affected by the flood are increasing daily and the state needs the federal government's urgent financial support. In a swift reaction, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, says it has received 3 billion naira to respond to the flood disasters following a red signal received by the National Hydrological Services agencies. NEMA's Director General Mustafa Mohaji says the funds are to help with the first stages of preparedness and response disaster mitigation. President Muhammadu Buhari has urged ECOWAS members country to do more to achieve the 2020 target for introducing the region's single currency. The president also cautioned that economic convergence must be based on sustainable macroeconomic fundamentals. Buhari said Nigeria is ready to assist ECOWAS in meeting this objective. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has asked the Nigeria Customs Service to place Ekiti State Governor Adele Fayoshi on criminal watch list. EFCC raised an alarm that the governor poses a flight risk and may leave the country via land borders, airports and seaports once his tenure expires next month. EFCC says Fayoshi is under investigation for conspiracy, abuse of office, corruption, theft, and money laundering. The Customs Service has ordered all its commands and formations for immediate compliance. The People's Democratic Party has urged the National Assembly to probe the alleged siphoning of more than 10 trillion naira by those it calls the cabal in the presidency. While former Minister of Finance Kemi Adeosun was still in office, the party alleges that the presidency and his party, the All Progressives Congress, used the finance ministry to siphon trillions of naira from the national treasury. PDP is asking the National Assembly to also probe the Ministry of Petroleum Resources for fraudulent oil contract contained in a leaked NNPC memo. The National Pension Commission says the federal government's liability to its employees on accrued pension has risen to 67 billion naira. The Commission says the inability to pay retirees' pensions started 4 years ago when PENCOM's budget was cut. The last payment the federal government made to retirees was in June last year. The problems became compounded this year when National Assembly also reduced the budget for payment of pensions, saying the government was planning to offset the liabilities through the supplementary budget. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP has called out the Minister of Health, Isaac Adewale, over poor management of facilities in Nigerian hospitals. SERAP is asking the Ministry of Health to provide information on actual locations to the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, LUTH, 20 federal teaching hospitals, and 20 federal medical centers across the country for the past 8 years. SERAP says despite budgetary allocations, many of the teaching hospitals and medical centers have been left to deteriorate, and healthcare facilities in many of the hospitals lack basic amenities. The group says the nation needs a paradigm shift and a change from the decades of mismanagement and neglect in the health sector. The Ministry of Labour and Employment has reacted to the 14-day ultimatum given by the unions for a new minimum wage. Minister of Labour and Employment Chris Ngige says the new minimum wage committee headed by Vice President Yemi Oshibajo will meet again this week. The committee is to come up with recommendations to be submitted to President Buhari. Ngige refuted claims in some quarters that the administration is playing games with the workers. Coming up, Zimbabwe cholera death toll climbs to 28. And later, Typhoon Mangkhut hit Asia as Hurricane Florence death toll rises in the U.S.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is CNN News. In African stories, government officials and residents in Ethiopia said overnight ethnic-based attacks in the outskirts of the capital, Addis Ababa, have claimed several lives, damaged properties, and caused hundreds to flee their homes. Head of the Oromia Police Commission, Alamahe Ajigu, said the perpetrators are criminals organized in groups to kill people and cause damage to the properties of targeted citizens. He said 70 suspects have been arrested. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed strongly condemned the killings and acts of violence against innocent citizens. His Chief of Staff, Fitso Murega, said the attacks represent a grave concern to the unity and solidarity of Ethiopian people and will be met with the appropriate response. Death toll in Zimbabwe's cholera outbreak has risen to 28. Last week, the country struggled with disease resistance to drugs. Now the health minister has announced new antibiotics are being used. The cholera outbreak was first detected in a township outside the capital, Harare, earlier this month. It prompted the government to declare an emergency in the city after at least 3,000 cases were reported. Health Minister Obadiah Moyo told the state media on Sunday, although the disease is yet to be contained, we are moving swiftly in all provinces of the country. Moyo said rubbish dumps would be removed from high-risk areas of Harare and food vendors have been ordered off the streets. At least 8 civilians have been killed in twin attacks in eastern Burkina Faso, where jihadists have been gaining ground in recent months. The regional governor said in a statement 2 terror attacks were carried out on Saturday in 2 villages in eastern Kopyanga province, claiming at least 8 lives. An unnamed security source said one of the attacks had targeted the home of a religious leader who was killed along with 4 others. 3 persons belonging to the same family were killed and another 2 injured. Burkina Faso has battled increased Islamic violence since 2015. The United Nations has condemned a direct attack on its peacekeeping mission in South Sudan after a government soldier shot and wounded a Nepalese peacekeeper. The UN statement says the South Sudanese soldier fired into the air near the UN convoy in the town of Ye before shooting at one of his vehicles. It said the peacekeepers could not return fire because of the risk of hitting civilians. The shooting on Saturday comes 3 days after South Sudan's warring sides signed a peace deal to end the civil war. UN Mission Chief David Shearer calls the attack and calls on South Sudan's government to bring its forces under control. The UN also says government troops fired about 50 shots close to the UN base in Niger on Saturday. Angola's Sport Ministry says it regrets the death of 5 football fans at an African Champions League quarter-final match in the capital, Luanda, on Saturday evening. Witnesses say gates to the stadium were shut during the game, but a stampede erupted after police opened fire. Fans rushed the gates and some were trampled on the police horses. The ministry said in a statement it regretted the deaths and the 7 injured persons had already been discharged from hospital. It added that a commission of inquiry would investigate the causes of the incident. Last year, at least 17 persons died and dozens were injured in a stampede at a stadium in northern Angola. Just a week prior to death, a fan died in Madagascar when the country hosted Senegal in an Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. Rwanda has freed 2,000 prisoners, including the top opposition leader, Victoria Ingabire, who has served 6 years of a 15-year jail term. President Paul Kagame had exercised his presidential power to grant pardons. Singer Kizito Mihigo, jailed in 2015 for plotting to kill Kagame, was freed as well. Government officials downplayed the political significance of the pardons. Justice Minister Justin Bizinga says the president has done what the Constitution allows him to do, grant mercy. Kwigare was arrested with her mother last year, accused of inciting an insurrection and using forged documents. The pair are due to appear in court next week. Kagame won a 3rd term last year and has been lauded for Rwanda's economic recovery after the 1994 genocide. Critics say he has muzzled free media and dissenting voices. When we return, international news. Typhoon Mangkhut kills dozens in the Philippines. And later, Pinnick campaigns for 2nd term as NFL boss.
You are watching ANN.
Super out. MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
I am Lucy Adeyemi.
I am Rotimi Akintunde.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji.
We bring you the news
On ANN News.
Business,
politics,
Global News.
Watch ANN News.
In a truly African spirit.
There is a new all-news network on the scene in Nigeria to give news from a purely news perspective and to promote free information flow across Africa. Fresh views, unbiased, bold, with a purely African view. African News Network, ANN, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the international scene, the world's strongest storm this year has got to be Typhoon Mangkhut, which has continued its violent path across Southeast Asia over the weekend. The devastating storm has also reached mainland China after killing dozens in the Philippines and 2 in southern China. More than 2 million persons have been evacuated in China's Guangdong province as Mangkhut made landfall. Chinese newspaper Xinhuan is reporting 18,000 emergency shelters have been activated and 600 tourism and 29 construction sites have been shut down. In the U.S., 2 infants birth under a year old among 17 persons who died after trees fell on their homes in separate incidents in North Carolina. Officials say 3 persons also died in separate weather-related traffic accidents in South Carolina. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes. Florence was downgraded from a hurricane soon after it made landfall on the east coast of the United States. 5 persons were arrested on suspicion of looting in Wilmington, North Carolina. The city is now under curfew from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. Hundreds of thousands of homes, both in North and South Carolina, have been without power, and there is no end in sight to their misery. British Prime Minister Theresa May has warned rebels in her party that unless they support her potential Brexit deal with the European Union, they will face a no deal. The United Kingdom is due to leave the European Union next year, but there is so far no full exit agreement, and some rebels have threatened to vote down a deal if she clinches one. But it is not sure whether she could command the 320 votes she needs in the House of Commons, the lower house of the British Parliament, to approve any potential deal. Gunmen dressed as traditional Mauritia musicians have killed 5 persons and wounded 8 in Mexico City. They opened fire at the road crossing on the edge of the Plaza Garibaldi, a major tourist attraction in the Tepito district, and fled from the scene on motorbikes. Tepito had suffered a wave of violence over the last month after the arrest of the gang's leader, Roberto Esparza. The number of killings in the city has surged since 2014. Nationwide, more than 200,000 persons have been killed and many have disappeared since 2016. The Mexican government declared war on organized crime. Mexico experienced its most violent attacks last year with more than 25,000 murders. A former British soldier, John Robinson, who is serving jail term in Turkey for allegedly fighting with Kurdish forces against the Islamic State, is begging for pardon from the UK government. Turkey is hostile to the YPG because of its links to the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is fighting in Turkey for Kurdish autonomy. Robinson, who faces more than 7 years in jail, claims he worked as a combat medic in Syria and didn't do any operations with the YPG. The Briton said he was arrested because someone had been stalking him. He hopes the diplomatic ties between Britain and Turkey would help him. Up next, sport. Pinnick orders battle for NFF chair. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand, that's
While the world sleeps, ANN News stays awake. News takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch ANN News in a truly African spirit.
I am Lucy Adeyemi.
I am Rotimi Akintunde.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. We bring you the news
on ANN News.
Business.
Politics.
Global news.
Watch ANN News
in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, the Niger Football Federation President Amaju Pinnick has vowed not to contest for any election in Nigeria if he becomes the president of the NFF on Thursday. The elections into the executive committee of the NFF were held in Katsina on Thursday. Pinnick said as the former chairman of Delta FA and former executive chairman of Delta Sports Commission, it is time to step aside. Pinnick will battle it out with former NFA chairman Aminu Magari, ex-international and former member of NFA Taiwo Gunjabi, and proprietor amateur league club Bimo FC Chinedu Okoye. Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge raised the bar for marathon runners across the globe on Sunday by beating a 2014 world record set by Dennis Kimeto. 33-year-old Kipchoge won the Berlin race in 2 hours and beat the old world record by an amazing gargantuous 75 seconds. That will be remembered for decades. A few months before the race, Kipchoge was optimistic about winning the race. He has won 10 of the 11 marathons he has ever run. The only time he didn't win was 5 years ago when he finished second in Berlin. That's ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great evening.